2,700. Almost 20% of the total demand is available in the form of capacity. However, all of these things have a problem. For example, windmill power, the installed capacity is about 560 megawatts. The actual production in the month of, I think the data is January, is 28 megawatts. Usable power that was generated using windmill power is 5% of the installed capacity. So those type of areas are fraught with both opportunities as well as risks associated with that sector. So let me quickly conclude by saying, as far as the ICT area is concerned, plenty of opportunities. Talked about smartphones, app development is the new gold rush. Follow innovation, follow the funds, follow the fund managers. And in the, just want to spend about 2 minutes on something that is outside of ICT. You know, we think that ICT is the area where there are opportunities, not in any other area. There is just one area that I'll pick, which is what we call QSR. Okay, quick service restaurants, hotel business, restaurant business. Tremendous amount of money that's going after this sector. Okay. Again, consumers, the middle class consumers will consume a lot more. And the often asked question is there opportunity for more restaurants? We already seem to have so many of them, restaurant chains, etc. So the answer is there is plenty of room. There's plenty of room. One statistics, tell you a city of New York City, not even the city of New York, Manhattan, that small island, a population of about 1.8 million people, has more than 13,000 restaurants, chains, single restaurants, etc. 13,000 restaurants and many more keep getting opened every day. Whereas a city like Chennai, which has almost, 4 times that population, the number of restaurants here are less than 3,000, if you count everything. Of course, you're not counting the roadside shops. There will be many, many more of those. They are countless, but then proper restaurants. And if you look at the population and the opportunity for these restaurants, tremendous scope for growth. And there's one such chain. You know, recently there was a pizza company that opened a restaurant here, Papa John's, and they were asked the question, we have so many pizza outlets who deliver, why one more? So the people who own the franchise said there is room for 20 more pizza chains here in the city of Chennai alone, provided they focus on quality and they keep constantly focusing on reducing the price of pizza. If the price of pizza keeps coming down year after year, then that's a phenomenal opportunity for more and more of the stores. And that's exactly what many of the focused funds are funding now. There's innovation possible in that area, money is flowing. So while there is a lot of opportunity in the ICT space, for those of you who are not from that sector, there are opportunities in other areas as well. Wish you all the very best. TIE as an organization is committed to promoting entrepreneurship in terms of mentoring, in terms of education, in terms of networking opportunities like this. Anytime any of you need any help, people like me and others are available as part of the TIE organization to help you sift through the opportunities and make you all successful. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Lakshmi, for the inspiring speech, identifying opportunities, especially the quick service restaurants. I never knew that such a huge opportunity. In fact, we have some people here from TIE who are already into the area, like Raghu Rajagopal here. And also thanks for all the support from Amin TIE. We shall be working very closely with Amin TIE. We shall be making use of their ecosystems, as well as we can offer them whatever we have in IIT Madras as part of our ecosystem. The third speaker today on the list is Kalpathy Suresh, who is an IIT alumni from 1986 batch. So he went abroad, he had done his master's. He used to work for Oracle in the US, but he was a serial entrepreneur, so he didn't want to become a corporate junkie like me or some of the other people sitting here. And he has come back within 2 years, and then he has set up a small Oracle Training Institute in Chennai. That was very humble beginning, which became into SSI, which was a fairly large, IT services and IT consulting company. And of course, he had grown the company, in fact, to a fairly large extent. And around 2000 or so, if I remember right, he just sold out the IT company, and then he got into various other areas like real estate and media, entertainment, and also private equity investment. For example, there are areas like microfinance where he has invested money, and within 3 years he just got out before the whole industry crashed. He is a highly successful serial entrepreneur who has been very, very successful, of course, in whatever he has been picking up. So, sir, would you like to come and tell us, how do you become a highly successful serious entrepreneur as a part of the gold rush?
Thank you, Ravi. Respected people on the dais. I actually didn't want to talk today. I did not realize that I had to talk today, but I was told a few minutes ago. I think the new gold rush, I have belief in most of everything that you have heard today from people on the panel. It's a gold rush, so there's a lot of gold where you are heading. It's a rush, you got to hurry, and there are a lot of people who are rushing. And it's a long gold rush, so it doesn't happen very quickly. It needs a great idea. It needs a hell of a lot of stamina to pursue and see it to a conclusion. Fundamentally, what it requires is self-belief, and you need to bring something to the table that you have and you believe in. So I have seen a number of ideas, today as a garb of an investor in various companies. I've seen a lot of ideas that goes past my desk. Big projects, fantastic idea, needs a lot of capital. From an investor perspective, if you're putting in a lot of capital, and if the entrepreneur comes not with so much of capital, and if the fundamental theme of the story is capital, then the investor logically believes he owns the entire piece. So it leaves very little for the entrepreneur on the table. So as you conceive of different ideas that you believe will succeed, what you have at that point in time is not a whole lot of cash, but a whole lot of ideas, whole lot of hard work, a whole lot of intelligence and acumen. And that needs to play a significant part in the development of the business. It cannot be capital. And then as you start building out the business, it could start becoming an important part of the business. And I'll give you some examples from what I built out of my own over the last 20-25 years. As Ravi mentioned, when we started out setting up an education business, well, there are already players in the market who are doing as good a job of education in IT space. I think what we brought to the table was a bunch of 3-4 of us who are extremely well qualified in the areas that we set out to teach in. So I remember days, and I see some of my very, very early students right here in the auditorium, whom I have taught over 20 years ago. I used to take classes, and I had the self-belief that I did the best job of doing it. And to me, that was the capital I brought to the table. And that was not money, because money was the one that was not easy going around. But I had the skill, I had the belief, so you put that as your capital on the table and make that count. And then over a period, you can get capital because you've built a business. It needs a lot of stamina as you build a business. Hardships apart, you're going to face competition. You're going to face competition in terms of people who can do better than you, come to ideas to market better than you, faster than you, and consistency pays. Again, an example from my own life. I do a lot of running, significant amount of running. I'm a long distance runner, I do marathons. I average 500, 600 kilometers a month. I've run in most of the large marathons in the world. And that teaches you a lot of things. When you start your run, you know you're going to be running in the hot sun for the next 4.5 hours. So you better get used to it very early on. It's not going to end very quickly. But when you finish, you get the runner's high. You know, it's a big feeling of success. You accomplished it. You made it big. There are a whole lot of people who are running along with you. But you can be assured out of that about 200 people will complete. Maybe 250. The rest are not going to complete. And it takes the next 4.5 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever your speed is. But it's going to take a long time to finish. And you got to have the perseverance to be there right till the end. And that has helped me quite a bit. So any venture that I look at, that I get into or I invest in, I know it's for the long run. So you complete 10 kilometers, you know you got another 32 kilometers to go. It doesn't end there. So that builds a lot of mental stamina, because entrepreneurship is also to be able to have a lot of mental stamina. You're going to face a whole lot of things. You just got to know that you're going to be there right in the end. You got to be able to see yourself in the end and making it happen. You got to enjoy what you're doing. As an entrepreneur, you got to absolutely enjoy what you're doing. It's not about it being tough, difficult. Everything in life is difficult. You got to enjoy it. The moment that you get out of bed any day of the morning where you got to drag yourself out to work, it's probably time you got out of it. That's not going to work. Because entrepreneur requires a whole lot of extra zest just to stay the course. So you got to enjoy what you're doing. It could be developing apps, as people mention. The biggest investment I got today is in agriculture. It's got nothing to do with what I've learned. It's got nothing to do with what I've built. But in a certain sense, you got to be able to see into what's coming if you want to see the returns. Usually, if you already hear a lot of clamor about anything, it usually means you already missed the bus. That's typically what it means. It's got to be something that's going to become big a couple of years later, and you got to be able to see it. And you got to understand that there's something that you can bring to the table that can make that happen. And I'll give you an example of something that we invested in about 8-9 months ago. It's a database system. It's a company out of the valley, Silicon Valley. It's a database system. So databases have been here for donkey's years. So there's nothing new to innovate right there. But this thing sits on the cloud. It's a real-time database. And I think what we liked was the idea and what the entrepreneurs brought to the table. And I am still trying to see if there are other people with similar ideas. But what I'm trying to get at was that these were 3 guys who got together, built it out, and they just worked for free. And they built a product based on capital that they had, which was knowledge, experience, intelligence. Once they had that in place, they went out looking for money. And then there was value for the investors who came, because there was already a business that was fully developed and right there. I think the next couple of years it's going to become big. But a year ago, there was nobody. People were not even talking about it. So you got to look at areas in the field of your expertise or what you bring to the table, and look for things that will become big a year and a half later. If it's already gone big, as I said, you already missed the bus. And it can be absolutely in any area, depending on what your field of expertise is. As I said, we have investments in agriculture, dairy, infrastructure, gaming, education, name it. We recently had somebody who applied for an internship from IIT Madras to our firm, which is a, we do investments, and this guy is in civil engineering, 4th year. And he wanted to understand how investing in companies that do civil engineering could be. He wanted to learn it. We're obviously taking him in as an internship just because I got kicked that somebody could even think on those lines doing a 4th year civil engineering. So I don't want to take so much time. Hopefully you know some of my background, so I'll open it up for questions. But just to end it, there's a lot of gold. There's a lot of rush. So there are a lot of people. There's a sense of hurry in the world, and it's a long run. But there's absolutely pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I've seen it one too many times. Thank you.
Thanks, Suresh. I think we are running slightly late. I think we have enough time only for about 3 questions. Anybody? Only 3 questions. Yeah, please. Mike? Madam, Mike? Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, actually, I have a question for Mr. Suresh Tripathi. I'm the same guy who applied for the internship.
Oh.
Sir, I'm a very big in terms of real sense of the world.
I'm not going to advocate what I do as the way to do things. And I'll give you an example. But from my perspective, I've built things, I've sold things. I look for the right time to enter a particular sector and try to time the exit from the sector to maximize returns, just to put it very simply. It's not as simple as that, because I remember that on the day we sold SSI, which we had built over 15 years, I actually felt nothing. I just signed the forms, ensured the money was wire transferred, and I was done, and I was out. I was gone. And next day morning, I was having breakfast with my son, and he didn't know about it, except that he read it on the papers the next day. And then he asked me, Appa, but how did you sell SSI? I thought we had built it, and it was for the family. So there are different thoughts about building businesses and selling. It's just in my blood that I build something, right time to get in, right time to get out, and that's not the only way to do it. In terms of timing, it's very difficult to state, but timing entries are very simple. You just need to do your research looking ahead. You don't look at what's happening now. You look at what could potentially happen 2 years, 3 years later. For example, a lot of our investments in agriculture focuses only on 2 things. We focus on roti and kapda, nothing else. We think in 3 to 5 years, that's going to become big. With the way the populations, big trends, big populations are growing, affluence is growing, wastage is growing, so somebody needs to produce it somewhere. So we started investing 2 years ago. We think in another 3-4 years, it would be a great time to exit. Most of the industries go through cycles. So if you look at an IT industry, we had a cycle. The first big bubble burst 2000, then we had something else that happened. 2005, 6, 7, we had another one. There's one more, and then it would become an extremely stable and mature industry. You're not going to get disproportionate returns. But if you can catch sectors which, before it goes into the first wave, that's when the big monies are made. You get disproportionate returns. So that's one. Then there are other things you learn as you keep doing stuff. But glad you applied. We'll be more than happy to have you on board, and hopefully you learn a few things sitting by your side and working.
Where exactly do you
Um, I think in terms of financial advisors, I have 3 people who work with me. That's the team, nobody else. You keep reading. You keep reading quite a bit. You keep your eyes open. Keep your ears open. Keep listening, keep hearing. You will find it. There's no big mantra in this. Absolutely nothing. And just understand, in every field that you look at, there is an opportunity. In every field you look at. It's just that the opportunities are in different flavors and stages. But there's always an opportunity in every field.
Only one more question.
Whether it is a social entrepreneurship or any other entrepreneurship. First and foremost, I mentioned that entrepreneurship is a business. So if you cannot make money out of it, you just cannot scale, might as well open an NGO or something like that. Don't become an entrepreneur. You can call it whatever name you want to. Entrepreneurs are their way of scaling is by earning money. Suresh just now mentioned that he's got into agriculture and roti and kapda. I don't know much about what he has got into it. But what I can say is that at every sector, whatever little money that they have needs. Whatever money they have, if you can make things affordable, then they will buy it. And if they can buy it, you may make little money in one single piece. The numbers will make up the rest of it. So the key thing is, again, driving business at all the time. I think we very often lose ourselves, either in the technology or saying that we are social entrepreneurs. Finally, it has to be that in everything that you deliver, whether it's a product or a service, you have to make monies. You may make very small money, doesn't matter. Then you should be able to scale with that. But you need to make money. I think there is a misconception that because you are doing social entrepreneurship and doing social good, you don't have to, you can do it without making money. Take, for example, one of the things that we try to do. I mean, in a country like ours, we have very, very few ATMs. In fact, when we started, we had hardly about 5,000 ATMs. And a very simple thing that when a ATM is used by you and I to withdraw money, it costs bank about 10, 15 rupees per transaction. If you walk into a bank's branch and withdraw money, it is 60 to 70 rupees per transaction. Very simple thing. So we know that the ATM is the way to go. And if you the banks said that they want to go into smaller towns and rural India, and they just cannot afford large amount of money, they cannot afford the cost of operations and things like that. And the innovation that got carried out, we actually were able to cut down power requirement by a factor of 5, and we were able to cut down the cost by a factor of 3 to 4. And it suddenly became affordable. The banks were able to go and put it in smaller towns and rural India, but finally somebody was making money out of it. So I think social entrepreneurship, thinking that social entrepreneurship, serving people is not making money. Well, that's not really correct. I think whatever business or whatever services or products that you offer, you have to make money. You can make little money. If the affordability is less, your product has to cost less, and then you make money out of it. So that's all I have to say.
That was a wonderful session for us. We've heard about ideas ranging from ICT to renewable sources to quick service restaurants, and we've heard about how to get them into reality. Before we close the first session, I would request Mr. C.P. Madhusudan, the current secretary of IIT Madras Alumni Association, to hand over the mementos. Mr. Ashok Jhunjhunwala. Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan. And Mr. Suresh Kalpati. That gets us to the end of session 1. The next session would be a panel discussion on leveraging the ecosystem for the new gold rush. We would start off by playing a small video.
May have a hard time with it. A business school is an intense period where you can get ahead of the game.
Now I would request the moderator, Rohit Reddy, to take over. He's a 5th year student from Metallurgical Material Engineering branch. He opted out of placements to live his dream of being an entrepreneur. I would request all the panelists to come on to the dais. Mr. Ellis Ganesh and Mr. Sridhar Vembu, Mr. Madhusudan, Mr. Balaraju K, Mr. Raghu Rajagopal, and Mr. Visesh Rajaram. I would hand over the dais to Rohit.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the panel discussion. The topic on which we'll be having this whole discussion is leveraging the ecosystem for the new gold rush. And we would just start with a round of all the panelists' views on the topic, starting with Mr. Sridhar Vembu. Sridhar Vembu has been the founder and CEO of Vembu Technologies, most famously known for the Zoho Corporation, which has come out with a wide series of Zoho office suites that are being widely used by more than 5 million people, I believe. And he was also awarded the TiE Serial Entrepreneur Award. The question I have for Mr. Sridhar Vembu is that since you've been in the US and you started up there and you're working in the field of web technologies, what do you see as the gold rush in that field? I mean, how do you identify the opportunities in a field like that? Because that's something students and young entrepreneurs are very much willing to do at this age.
So in fact, about 15 years ago when we got started, one of the things that I would say we were looking for ideas what to do, pretty much in the same state most of you are in. So one thing that I realized quickly is when you're looking for an idea and looking for money, you're never going to find money. Right? People are not going to fund somebody who says, I'm looking for an idea. And it's not easy to get ideas. I mean, I'll be very clear. Right? Most ideas are actually derivative. In fact, you will realize in business, it's actually okay to copy, as long as you do a better copy than the other guy. So if you find some cool idea somewhere and you can say, I can do something better than this. Most things come from that, actually. That's how most ideas come, as building on someone else's idea. That's how it works in research. That's how it works in PhD, which I unfortunately did, wasting a lot of time. In fact, that's one good advice. Okay? If you ever want to start a company, don't ever do a PhD. That's like 5 years, 4 years down the drain. In my case, I would say I can even put a cost to it. It's probably cost me $50 million, easily. If I had started 5 years sooner, I would be richer by $50 million. So that's how much it cost me. So. But yeah, so ideas, I would say if you are very young, think very small. Think about what you can do in 6 months, 1 year. Don't think about, I mean, Bill Gates didn't think of, at 17, he wasn't thinking about how to become a billionaire. He was thinking about how to not have to get a job. That's how you should think. So your first goal is, how do I make sure I never have to get a job? It's a modest goal. That's an easy goal. If that's the only goal you set, you can probably achieve it in maybe a year or 2 years. On the other hand, if you set a goal like I'm going to become a billionaire, you're not going to achieve it. You'll never find a path to it. So the way the billionaire happens is, you steadily build towards it, right? First you get that, I don't have to get a job. Then you have some money in the bank. Then you think somewhat bigger. Then bigger and bigger and bigger. That's how it happens. If you look at Microsoft, they started with BASIC, which actually a couple of computer science students can hack together in about 3 months. Even now, right? I mean, even now it's even better. So you focus on ideas like that. Couple of you, I always say 2 because 1 is actually too lonely. And it gets depressing after, it gets depressing after even first month, 2 months. There's no money, no job. It gets depressing. So you need 2.